Inshallah Aziz, our special guest, Dr. Goga Sahab, will explain the wisdom of fasting in accordance to physical side. Inshallah, you will benefit from this program.
Alhamdulillah, I'm truly honored to be here to, inshallah, help bring benefit to you and your family, inshallah, because physical health is the elephant in the room right now, isn't it? So, a couple of things. I'm going to have a bit of an intro, and then I'm going to talk about how to maximize your health during Ramadan. It's the perfect opportunity to get back to your baseline. And then Azhar Dr. Mahmoud Chania, Hafidhahullah, I roped him in to talk about this bit on the ruh and the nafs, because he's far more qualified than me. And then throughout you'll have advice for in and out of Ramadan, inshallah. But out of interest, because generally when I give these things I just yap on. What do you want out of this? When you came here, what were you thinking? Were you just thinking, I'm just going to go to the masjid and just see what he says? Huh?
best out of the Ramadan in a sense.
Yeah. Okay, how to maximise, yeah? Okay, yeah. What I want you to do, because a word of warning, I offend a lot of people when I give these talks, especially Gujaratis. Okay, Pakistanis are a bit more relaxed when I speak about these things, but I'm warning you, okay? So, again, you've got to ask yourself, don't let Ramadan be an annual, same old, run-in-the-mill Ramadan. Excuse me. You've got to ask yourself, why are you doing Ramadan? It's not just because we're obliged to do it. There's a higher reason that's bigger than yourself. And the verse that defines the wujub, the necessity, the obligatory nature of Ramadan, it spells it out for us. Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba alal ladina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. The very purpose, the only purpose of Ramadan is to reach a sense of, one of the best translations I've heard of taqwa is Allah consciousness, God consciousness. And that's your why. It's not just because that's just something we do because I was born into Islam. Now taqwa, to reach it, there's a clear path, and there's a divine wisdom of why in Ramadan we're hungry. And our ulama, they say that if you get it right, if you subdue the stomach, what then happens is your desires automatically get subdued, and you're on a win-win situation for reaching a state of taqwa. So that should be your why. It shouldn't be weight loss. It shouldn't be reaching good health. That's just a bonus. Okay. So that's the physical side. And spiritual strength, where does that get you? And as Amana we'll talk about this, but just have a think of, by the end of Ramadan, spiritually, not just physically, where do you want to be? And essentially taqwa is, or ulama explain, is the obvious one is to do what Allah demands from us. The second obvious one is actually to avoid what Allah wants us not to partake in, out of His infinite wisdom. And then the third thing is to do it from the depths of your heart, because you want to, not because you want to go to paradise, not because you want to stay away from Jahannam, but actually the highest state of taqwa is the maqam of mahabba and ishq, which is what ulama say, is that you do it because you're just deeply in love with Allah, your maker. And that's what spiritual strength will get you, but this is the time to calibrate. So, a couple of things about well-being. There's not one thing that will make you be in your physical element. Okay, it's not one thing. I have patients who, they come to see me and they're on a super rich diet, but they're not very physically active, and their mental health is atrocious, and they never will feel good. Equally, I've got patients who hit the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week, and they're really fit, but they still can't reach their optimum health because they have an atrocious diet. And there are people who mentally they're strong, they're going through the mill in life, what Allah throws at them, and they're strong here, but their health isn't optimum because they have an atrocious diet and they don't exercise. So these are the elements of well-being. The top 3, the top one is nutritious diet. Like whatever you do in your life, you have to have a super rich diet. Khalas is the basis of everything. I'll elaborate on this as we go along. You have to be physically active. Yani you have to be at least doing 150 minutes a week of physical activity, which is nothing more than 22 minutes and 30 seconds a day. That's it. Okay? You have to be engaged in something regularly. And if you want a deep dive, there's if you go to Mawli Abdurrahim Saab's YouTube channel, I did this a few years ago, separately on diet, exercise and mental health. There's more info on that. Emotional regulation, very important. You have to be you have to be calibrated in your mind. You have emotions, you're a human being, you're allowed to have them, but if you're struggling with it, you have to have it calibrated. Sleep is really important, like very important. It repairs your damaged cells, basically. Aim for 7 to 8 hours over a 24-hour period, however you want to do that. And then the obvious one is avoiding substance misuse like alcohol, drugs, I'd say shisha now, and obviously smoking. And then I've put in there spiritual growth. This is my little masala that I've just put in. So that the other 5 is what health gurus talk about. and I've just slotted in spiritual growth because that's obvious for the Muslim. And you must have heard of, you've heard of IQ, yeah? There's now emotional IQ. So if you are emotionally in tune with yourself, you're going to be more successful in life, including financially. In fact, those who are more emotionally in tune with themselves, they earn about 20k more than someone who's not emotionally in tune with themselves. There's now a higher level of intelligence that they've recognized, which is spiritual intelligence. And this is across any type of spiritual realm you want to talk about. So, in other words, if you want to reach your element, you have to tap into your spiritual self, which is your soul. So these are the elements of well-being, and we're going to talk about nutrition today. But why is it important? Because, and everybody here will and listening will feel this, any illness, any disease, being overweight, for example, you don't have an illness, it affects you physically. Do you feel good physically? No. Do you feel good mentally when you're unwell or if you're unfit? No. Do you feel good spiritually? And the answer is simply no. And what experts in health, what they say is that if your body is in good shape, if your body is in its element, it will show up in every single sphere of your life. It will show up with your work, with your career, with your relationships, it will show up in your religion. And that's why if you look at our Aslaf, the greats from the past, they were spiritually strong, but if you look at their physical health, these guys were physically very fit individuals. Like if you just go back to our source, which is the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who here has rode a horse? Why not? Ride a horse. It's rock hard. You have to be, and perhaps someone was riding a horse in his 60s. You understand? He was like, even up to his last days, he was, mashallah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it affects you physically, spiritually. It's really important to address these issues. Now we're talking about Ramadan. What are the benefits of fasting? Tons of it. These are all scientifically proven. Okay? It's known to reduce your sugar levels, diabetic or not, and it's known to balance them out. It's proven to, if you do it properly. This is why I'm here. How to do it properly? Okay, right? It reduces your blood pressure, reduces weight, obviously, fat burns very, very quickly, very effectively as well if you do it properly. It reduces your cholesterol. It helps you here. I don't know about anybody here, but at work I feel like I'm on the ball in Ramadan more than any period of the year. Like from a cognitive point of view, super sharp if you do it properly. And also it delays aging. It repairs damaged skin cells and it makes you look younger for longer. Okay, this is proven. And you heard of the 5-2 diet? Everybody's heard, most people have. Just Google it, 5-2 diet. We have our 5-2 diet. This was done 1400 years ago by the Rasul Sallallahu on fasting on the Monday and the Thursday. And then if you, when I was doing this initially with my children, we worked out, if you include Ramadan, and if you include all the Sunan fasts across the year, which is Monday, Thursday, Ayyamul Bid, 13, 14, 15, 6 of Shawwal, the first 9 of Dhul Hijjah, 2 of Muharram, you fast for 40% of the year, nearly 50%, okay? And have you heard of intermittent fasting? The concept of intermittent fasting, I haven't got time to talk about it, just take a look at it. It works, okay? And of course we have Sunnah fast year round, and the Prophet, the reason why he encouraged Sunnah fast was because he says Sumu tasihu, that if you fast, just watch your health be in its element. You'll literally heal yourself, okay? So it's not just for Ramadan. But why are we talking about this? It's really important that anything in life, if you're struggling with anything in life, think, how do I do this? If you answer why, the how becomes infinitely easier. Okay, why am I doing something? The how becomes easier. Now, the status quo is pretty bad, and that's me being polite. Like nearly 60% of us, when I say us, I mean our culture, nearly 60% of us are overweight or obese. That's a terrible statistic to be proud of. Okay, terrible. In terms of our children, it's nearly 40%. Now, when it comes to food, what do we do with our kids? I'll be honest. What do we do with our children when it comes to food? Because you all got grin, because you all do it, because you're all laughing. What do we do? What do we do? Eat. A fat kid in our culture is not a what? It's not a healthy kid. And when we get married, right, lads, before we get married, we train, right? Get married, and if you're not obese within 3 months of marriage, what do people say? She's not feeding him. They're not in a happy marriage. So culturally, this is how we identify it. We're like, it's a good thing, but it has its negatives. Just eat. You know, that's. And when was the last time you saw one of us go for a run? Anybody? When was the last time you saw any of us go cycle or swim? We just don't exercise. Okay. So this is and why is this important? Because look, 25% of us. I bet everybody here knows somebody with diabetes. Agreed? 15% of us have it. And that's an understatement, because doctors, we believe that most people who have illness don't actually go to the doctor because they're scared. Okay? Because they're frightened, they don't want to know. 25%, 1 in 4, has a heart problem. Whether that's high blood pressure, they've had a heart attack, or they have angina, or cardiovascular, for example, stroke, they've had a stroke or a mini stroke. We all know everybody. This is the UK national statistics. So it's a big problem, and we don't eat our 5 a day. You're like, what is 5 a day? People go, I don't know. Bhajia, samosa. What is it?
Healthy.
But why is it important? So we're still on why. Because just being overweight and obese, okay, we haven't got time to talk about it because we've got to cover a lot of ground. But feel free to take a look at the research yourself. What defines being overweight and obese? And you can work it out yourself at home by measuring your BMI. But it puts you at risk of all these things. When you look at the cancer bit, it's 13 types of cancer. Strip away everything else, every other risk factor, even genetics. Being obese and being overweight, you're on the back foot with your health. Khalas. Okay. Now, obviously, you know, COVID is still there. I know it's not in the news, but that doesn't mean it hasn't gone anywhere. Okay, the past 4 weeks has been ridiculously bonkers at work for us. Not yesterday, but the week before, a quarter of the GP workforce was off sick because of COVID, or they have to isolate because of family members. It's just insane. But it hasn't gone away, and it ain't going to go away for a long time, okay? But if you look at data, 3/4 of people who are admitted in ITU, if you strip away age, other risk factors, etc., 3/4 were actually obese or overweight. It's a big problem. Like, it puts you on your back foot. You have an increased risk of dying by 50% just by being overweight. Nothing else. And vaccine or no vaccine. If you're overweight, if you're obese, the efficacy of the vaccine isn't as good. So it's really important to address this, because things aren't going to go, and we're fragile individuals, okay? We're fragile by nature. Allah can send another pandemic whenever He wills, and it's likely that this is going to happen again, just because of the nature of the world that we're in. So it's really important to optimize on your health and not be on the back foot, okay? So key messages, okay? If you're going to remember anything from me today, okay, just remember 2 things. 1, know what you're eating. Know what's going into your mouth. Really, really important. And the other thing is eat less, okay? And you're going to summarize it: eat less and eat right. Remember those 2 things. Eat less and what? Eat right. Why is it important? Because look, the world, culturally, the world that we're living in, okay, it's really hard to be healthy. Like, it's really, really hard. Okay, my patients talk about this all the time. Let's start from the top. When was the last time you saw on a billboard or on a TV advert, broccoli, buy one, get one free? Anybody seen that? It doesn't sell. Okay, you just won't see it. You see all the good stuff, don't you? Okay? Look at, again, so that's adverts and the deals, right? Since 1980, our physical movement has dropped by 80% because of the nature of transport and the nature of our jobs. It's dropped by 80%, so we're more sedentary, stagnant than ever before in human history, okay, than ever before. If you look at our foods, it's got far more fat, sugar and salt content in there to make it taste nice or to bulk it up. So I'll give you an example. I'm a useless husband, okay? I don't cook, can't cook, won't cook, okay? I'll make a mess of it, so I just don't bother. That's my excuse anyway. But if my wife's struggling, what do? I'll go to a local store and I'll go buy some halal, 100% halal HMC burgers, right? I'm not going to mention the brand because I don't want to ruin anybody's business. But after I put it in the oven, I turned the package over and looked at the ingredients. Now, what do you need to make a lamb kebab? A burger, what do you need? I'll start you off. Lamb. What else do you need? My sister's here, Mona. Our sister's listening? Yeah, don't embarrass yourselves.
They're
Okay.
watching.
Well, they're laughing at home. Nothing useless men. You need lamb. What else do you need? So let's just say spice. Yeah. What else do you need? Onion. A little bit of oil, and that's about it, right? This oven halal, super halal burger had over 60 ingredients in there. How many? 60 ingredients, and it's there to make it last longer in the freezer, bulk it up, and also to last longer. In fact, only the other day I was just, when I go shopping, I take ages, but I read the labels for it, and there was a lamb kebab, and only 30 or 40% of it was actually lamb. 20% was chicken. This was HMC. So a lamb kebab had 20% chicken. Anyway, so it's there to like takeaway. This is becoming a culture now of eating out. I'm not against anybody's business, but you're eating rubbish. Like, quite frankly, it's absolute junk. It's going to ruin you. Have it for treats, but it should not be a regular thing or every week at all. Okay, and it's becoming a culture. Mufti Shabir Hafidullah, he said to my brother recently, he said 2 things that are ruining this ummah. One is WhatsApp. And the other is eating out. Our portions is bigger. If you look at if you just go to restaurants, things, you just get massive portions. In fact, even in terms of foods as well. And then when you go to the checkout, you see all the rubbish stuff, don't you? And you go and buy it. I'll just have it on the way home. No one will know. And then you got confusing food labels because they don't half confuse you. So it's just really hard. Now, what you want to think about is, okay, so maybe I need to spend more time when I go shopping, and just making sure I know what's going in my mouth. And to make it easy for you, go organic. Okay, there must be organic shops around here, because this is, mashallah, pretty well off area compared to the other side. So there must be organic shops around here. And there's a brother called Kashif. He has I don't have any shares in his company, okay? He has a company called Eden Foods. He does organic halal meat. It's really expensive, but it's well worth it. You can taste the meat, proper nice. So just think about, what am I eating, okay? And make healthier choices. But a couple of questions, okay, ask yourself, and be honest with yourself, okay? One of the most successful human beings on the planet are people who are objective with themselves, okay? You have to question yourself. Does food control you, or can you control food? Who's in charge? Who's in charge here? Do you know when to stop? Okay. Do you eat to live or live to eat? They're 2 different things. You know the answer. The primary function of food is what? It's just to function, isn't it? It's not for anything else. One of my friends in Leicester, Mufti Muhammad ibn Adam, Adam's son, Hafidullah, Allah protect both of them. He said to me once, and I really like this jumla, and I did say to him, I'm going to say this wherever I go. He said to me once, when we were together, he said, I don't eat because of lazzat. I don't eat because of enjoyment. I eat to function. And he's 45 years old. If you were to see him, mashallah, he's in good shape. Mashallah. But these are questions you want to ask yourself. So then what else? Okay, I get that. Now what should I eat then? Okay, I know I need to eat the right stuff. I know I need to be in control. So the question is, what then should I eat? I'll give you a blueprint, and inshallah I hope this blueprint will last you for whole of Ramadan and moving forward long term. So play the long game, okay? If you just play the short game, you might have good health by the end of Ramadan, but if you go back to bad habits, you're back to square one come Sha'ban. And you're going to repeat that cycle over again. Whereas if you follow this protocol, inshallah, for the whole year you'll be more steady, your health will be more stable, and an added bonus, you won't struggle in the first few days of Ramadan. You will not struggle, okay, because you're already semi-doing it, okay? What I suggest is aim to eat protein at Sahri and Iftar, and I'll come to what that is, and what's known as slow-release carbohydrates. Over the periods where you can eat and drink lots of water. Aim for 1 litre to 1.5 litres of water, One of my friends, he's a convert, he's a boxer, he got knocked out, nearly died, found Islam, long story. Okay? He trained me for a while. And he said this to me when he was training. He said, most people mistake hunger for thirst. They're not hungry. They're actually thirsty. We're chronically dehydrated. So aim for 1.5 litres to 1 litre of water a day. And if you can't stomach that at Sahri or Iftar, if you can't stomach that water, or you're worried that you might just not get off the toilet, then have water-based foods. The big two are watermelon and cucumber. Okay, just eat the good stuff. And you're less likely to remain hungry. You will hardly remain hungry, inshallah. Now, what are protein-rich foods, okay? Top 3, eggs. Now, eggs have a bad press, okay? They're fine. They're not going to do your cholesterol over, okay? You can have as many as you want, as often as you want. What did I have for Sahri this morning? I had a double omelette egg, with obviously egg, double egg omelette with paprika and za'atar. Have you heard of za'atar? Za'atar is a Palestinian herb. Palestinians give it to their children when it's exam time. It's good for the brain. And you'll understand why I said this in a minute. And I had it with a spoon. I didn't have it with bread. I'll come to why in a second. And a glass of water. And it's 2 o'clock and I don't feel hungry. Okay, so protein stays in your system for a longer period than your Cocoa Pops. Okay, which I'll come to why it's a problem. G.
Organic or not organic or non-organic?
Get organic. Get organic. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, this is the spiritual realm. Okay, you know when an animal is reared unethically, right? You're going to feel that. Understand? You know, Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. This is really important to understand. Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he refused to eat the apples of Damascus. Do you know why? Because the governor at that time, he took hold. He usurped all the orchards and said this belongs to the government now, unethically. Nawawi rahimahullah, he would refuse to eat the apples. And he'd wait for them to come from outside of Damascus to eat them. Some of our scholars, you know, our teachers, when we go to their house, I overeat. And the reason why I overeat at some of our teachers' houses is because I know that their income is halal. I know that they were very scrupulous when they went and bought this. Where did they buy this from? And I know that Mahmoud, who's one of our teachers' wives, she does dhikr when she cooks. And I know that for a fact, especially salawat on Nabi. And after I eat it, I feel good. Understand? And the same principle applies with unethical companies. Understand? You'll feel it. Put the health bit to the side. Like spiritually, you'll feel it. Some of our ulama, they say, I heard that my mother, while she was breastfeeding me, did khatam after khatam after khatam after khatam. He became one of the greatest scholars of the Hijaz. Understand? That's why these things are so important. Because it's about ethics. It's about ethics. So eggs, fine. Meat is fine. Avoid beef, avoid buffalo often. But chicken, lamb, turkey is fine. It's not going to make you ill. It's actually really good for you. Okay. Have as much of it as you want. And it's okay to have it Sahri as well. Okay. Fish, tons of it. Especially cold water fish, salmon, mackerel, non-tinned tuna. Get the fresh stuff. Okay, don't get the tinned stuff, get the fresh stuff. And have as much of it as you want. Okay? In fact, I'm planning my Sahri tomorrow. I'm going to have salmon and scrambled egg. Okay? Try salmon, spinach and a poached egg. It's really nice. Okay? You'll stay hungry less. Obviously, you can't have dal in the morning, but dal is very good for you. There's tons of protein. It's very, very good for you. Have as much as you want. Hummus, chickpeas, nuts, especially hazelnut, almond and walnut, but in smaller portions. Tons of protein. Okay? Right. Carbohydrates. This is the most important thing. Okay? Carbohydrates, you want to go for what's known as complex carbohydrates, not simple or refined. Look at the top. Complex carbs, essentially brown. Okay? Wholemeal. Fruit and veg. Okay? Porridge oats. Because it's like protein, it stays in your system for a longer period. The problem with simple carbs, like Frosties, white bread, all the good stuff, okay? This happens, who has breakfast at 8 o'clock and then by 10 o'clock you're hungry? Does it not happen? And you find yourself going into the kitchen or at work and you find something to put in your mouth. Because what happens is that sugar is burnt off rapidly. So the energy is utilised very, very quickly, and then you have a crash and you feel hungry again. Okay? So you go for the same old rubbish again. You have Frosties for breakfast, and at 10 o'clock you think, I'm just going to have a slice of toast. And at 12 o'clock, I'm just going to have a biscuit. And see that cycle that continues? Why is this important? Check this out. So this is done by a GP, Dr Unwin, who's up north, and he's quite open about this. He developed diabetes, and he was mortified. So how did this happen? So he went through his whole diet. What am I eating? Right? So this was my typical breakfast. He's done this. This is his. Okay. Every morning, more or less, I'd have a bowl of brown flakes with milk, obviously, brown toast with butter, and pure apple juice. And he worked out the sugar content, and it's 16 teaspoons. Would you have imagined that? Right? Why is that important? You've all heard of the hormone insulin? Yeah? Whatever you eat, it has natural sugar in there. Okay? Whatever you eat. Or added sugar if you're eating junk. Your body has to deal with that. Okay? High levels of sugar makes your blood pressure go up, can get converted to fats, can cause problems with your nerves, kidneys, vision, you name it. So the body's mechanism is insulin is released, gets that sugar out of the bloodstream into muscles where it needs it, okay, to utilize it for energy. When you have decades, so it doesn't happen overnight, it's usually decades. When you have decades of high carb diet, which we'll come to, if you're having decades of it, eventually your body gives up. It says, I'm not doing this anymore. And then it stops working. And then the sugar stays in your bloodstream for a longer period and you end up with diabetes. Okay? That's why this is so important. Now check this out. Sorry guys, Cocoa Pops. Rajadi kids' favourite cereal. I mean, it's nice, but it's not good for you. Yeah? It's not good. Would you put 8 teaspoons of sugar on your cornflakes? No one would do that, agreed? This is the equivalent. Remember, it's a grain. It naturally has sugar in it, but they also add it in. Who here has had who here has had organic brown flakes? Okay, fine. It's disgusting. It doesn't taste of anything because it hasn't got any sugar in it. It's an acquired taste. But look at the top. Look at Cocoa Pops cornflakes. Okay, tons of it. Okay, go for your porridge oats if you can. Okay, it's fine. It's got 4, but it's slow release. This number is important. The glycemic index. The higher the number, the higher your sugar levels spike very quickly. Look at porridge oats, it's quite low. Special K, quite low. Look at cornflakes. Like hundreds right at the top. Right? Your sugar's going to go boom, and then you're going to have a crash. Remember, if you're accustomed to having this daily, and you're having it for decades, your insulin's going to stop working eventually. Now, staple diet stuff, this is when people don't like me, okay? Rice. We love rice, isn't it? It's a starchy grain. Naturally, it's got sugar in. I'm talking 150 grams is a normal portion, not one of our mountain plates. Right? I'm talking about a normal portion has got the equivalent of 10 teaspoons of sugar. One potato's got 9. Okay? I know it's staple stuff. Okay? Bread should be on there, but look right at the bottom. Broccoli and eggs, 0. Won't make your sugar spike. Okay? The reason why I say that is because the bottom line is the reason why we're feeling ill and the reason why we're overweight is because of sugar. It's not fat. It's not fat. It's sugar content. It's carbohydrate. So basically, you want to go for a low carb diet, long term. And if you're going to go for carbs, go for slow release. So I'll give you a couple of quick wins because then people say, what am I supposed to eat then? No rice, no roti, no potato. How am I supposed to live? Especially our culture. When I went to Glasgow a few weeks ago, about a month ago, my brother said, this is fine, Zakaria, but my mum said to me that I'd rather die than stop eating rice. Because culturally, this is how we identify ourselves. My whole life I've had this. I get that. So what I say is, look, have it twice a week. Don't have rice more than twice a week. Don't have potato more than twice a week, and don't have roti more than twice a week. And in between, if you're a salan roti person or rice roti every day, that's fine. Culturally, if that's who you are, that's fine. Just do a couple of swaps. Just try it. Okay? Instead of naan, roti, chapati, bread, okay, try and give it up. If you can't, instead of that, why don't you have a green leafy vegetable and use that as your roti? Okay? You'll get over it within a week. Psychologically, it's the dip. It's the psychological dip. Okay? Use a green leafy vegetable. Instead of rice, chop your vegetables to make it look like rice. Or buy broccoli rice or cauliflower rice. And just dunk it in and have it with a spoon. You'll get over it within a week. Instead of potato, have cauliflower. Okay? Or sweet potato, which is a little bit better. But have cauliflower. Okay? You do this, you give up on carbs or have a low carb diet, just watch your weight I've got a patient, I call him my prized patient. He weighed 152 kilograms. How much? 152. Huge, right? And he was bordering diabetes. His cholesterol was 7.8, which is sky high, right? Came to see me, and what I asked my patients is, and I learnt this from some brilliant teachers in medicine. I asked him, I said, what do you want? When you go see a doctor, what do they usually do? I used to be one of them. You walk in, before you sat down, what have they done? They brought the prescription out for you. And they do, don't they? You've got 10 minutes, I'm telling you what you're going to do. But alhamdulillah, you meet some amazing people in your life and they calibrate your mind really well. So I asked him, what do you want? He said, I don't want pills. Do not give me any. I was like, why? He said, because psychologically then I'm going to be like, I can eat what I want. It ain't going to work. Okay, so this notion of pills are going to make you feel better ain't going to work. Most of my patients are on pills for blood pressure because of high cholesterol, diabetes. They don't feel better. They don't feel healthy. They aren't healthy. And then we just keep on adding in medication because things aren't improving. He said, I don't want to be in that cycle. I said, fine. I said, do this. So I put him on a low-carb diet, what we've been talking about. And within 10 weeks, he lost 20 kg. Minimal exercise. In 10 weeks, his cholesterol went from 7.8 to 3.6. That's better than any drug on the planet. Okay, and it's free. And he's still going. Okay, I have a patient, let's just call him Bill. Okay, he's 36 years old. He had a heart attack. Came to see me, he said, I nearly died, because 50% die. So I nearly died, I don't want to go through this again, what do? He was diabetic. So I asked him, what do you have for breakfast? He said, I have a bowl of cereal, typical, 2 toast and a cup of tea. I said, what time does the next thing go into your mouth? He said, well, at 10:30 we have a round of toast and a cup of tea at work. He's a mechanic. I said, what time does something else go in your mouth? He said, yeah, I go to Tesco and get a meal deal at lunchtime. What do you eat next? He goes, 3 o'clock we have a round of toast and a cup of tea at work. I said, what next? He goes, 6 o'clock I have a proper cooked meal at home. Wife cooks. Great. Then what? He goes, yeah, at 10 o'clock I have to have a round of toast and a cup of tea before I go to bed. I said, bro, you're having a loaf of bread a day. He said, oh yeah. He didn't realise. Okay? He gave up bread. That's all he did. Gave up bread, and to be diabetic you have to have a level of more than 48. His was 104, 105. Within 3 months it halved. And then we started taking off medication. Why am I saying this to you? Because the notion that, once you've got something, you've got it, is wrong. Your body can calibrate. Have a guess. If you start on this flex, within how many weeks do you think your body will repair itself? Just have a guess. 3. Bus. 3 weeks. And you've got 4 in Ramadan. Within 3 months, you'll reach your baseline. You've just got to stick with it. Okay? Remember, the most beloved of things to the Prophet ﷺ was things that were done consistently. Okay? Bruce Lee, who probably stole this quote from the Prophet ﷺ, he said it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Anything in life. Anything in life. Okay? So that's why it's really important to really think about these things. Okay, quickly on fats, go for the unsaturated. So think cooking olive oil. Nobody cooks here, but cooking olive oil. Fish, like we talked about. Okay, the tree nuts, avocado is amazing. I've got a real thing for guacamole right now. Really nice with scrambled egg. Okay, limit your saturated fats. So limit your cream, especially double cream. Okay, I can remember, I won't say where, Sahri in Itikaf with some of the brothers who we're all familiar with. It was like cereal, cream, kajur, sugar on their cereal. Just limit it as much as you can. Fats on meat is not a problem for us. We tend not to do that. Cheese, limit it. Okay, but lose this. Lose this. Only have it for celebrations. Think Eid, think graduation, completion of house, whatever. Okay, only have it for then. Okay, as a treat. This stuff is rock hard to burn off. Khalas. Super hard. You can undo a month's work with one Krispy Kreme donut. Okay, it's gorgeous, it's really nice, but you can undo a lot of hard work with this. It's rock hard. A lot of the stuff, when they make this stuff, the oils that they use get converted to a semi-solid molecule, and it goes in places we don't want it to be, or see, and it's rock hard to burn off. Okay, so it's called trans fats. Just avoid it as much as you can. So then what do you do? What I suggest you do is for Sahri, make sure you have a good one. The Prophet ﷺ said have it because it's barakah in it. So have a good one. But like I said, don't skip it, but go for, plenty of water and think slow release carbohydrate or protein rich foods. Okay? I'll only have one or two things for my Sahri. Porridge oats or eggs. That's me done. Okay? I might throw in fish now and again, but generally that's me done. And have tons of water. If you can, avoid having too much tea or coffee during Ramadan. No more than 2 cups over a 24-hour period because it makes you urinate. It's a diuretic and you'll feel dehydrated. You're not hungry, you're probably thirsty during Ramadan. So make sure you have tons of water. Okay? Think fruits, melon, cucumber, keep you going. For iftar, what do you do here, Mona? Do you have a 10-minute scran before Maghrib, or is it just kajur and zamzam?
Kajur.
So my local masjid, I'm sure the imam's very, very welcoming to anybody. What they do is they have, the adhan goes and then they have a 10-minute break until Maghrib. And everybody brings food. Now does anybody bring broccoli? No. What do you think they bring, right? There's a takeaway around the corner, right? It's the only time in the year when my son runs to the masjid. he's the first one there and the last one out, right? There's one brother, he said, I don't even need to cook in, my wife doesn't need to cook in Ramadan. There's just so much food, so they all just grand within 10 minutes, right? It's polished, right? So they have that, then they go home, and if you don't eat, what's going to happen? Your wife or your husband or your mum is spent the whole day cooking, right? What's going to happen if you don't eat? You're dead, right? So they have to eat, and after you eat properly, then what do brothers do? And you all do this, because I know you do. After you've eaten as if you've never seen food before, when you have your iftar, okay? Then what you do, just before Tarawih, you think, I'm going to be standing in masjid for like 2 hours, let me just get something to eat. And you just put something in your mouth, right? Then you come home, and if it's weekend, you all do this. Your mates go, come on, let's go get some scram. And you'll go somewhere, like Dean Road, right? Or you'll come home and there'll always be leftovers. And you'll shove it in your mouth. You've had 5 meals in a 24-hour period. How many? 5 meals in a 24-hour period. And that's why the weight of the Muslim goes up. So what I suggest is, do what you do here, date some water, nothing else, and go for 3 to 5 dates, no more than that, okay? And eat once, I'll say it again. How many times? Eat once after Maghrib, that's it. If you get hungry, drink water, or just have kajur, but don't have that meal because you won't know when to stop. And go for the list of foods that we talked about, protein rich and slow release carbs, and substitute the rice, the roti, and the potato as much as you can. But don't eat as if you've never seen food before. Okay, as much as you can, avoid fried foods. Okay, so sorry lads, no samosas. If you're gonna have it, air fry it. Okay. Air fry it is fine, but remember that oil gets converted to a semi-solid molecule, it becomes a trans fat, it's hard to burn off. Avoid sugary foods because you'll crash. You'll get more hungry, you won't realise you'll eat more. Avoid processed foods. So remember the oven foods, the takeaways, the microwave foods, avoid them completely. 60% of the UK diet is processed foods. If you have a diet that's only 30% processed foods, you have a 20% increase of cancer. Okay? Processed foods is killing us. Avoid it as much as you can. In fact, if you stop processed foods, within 10 days you'll lose 2 kilograms. If you have a low carb diet, within 10 days you lose 1 kilogram. Limit your salt because it makes you thirsty. Limit these oils because it is known to increase fatigue. And again, limit caffeine because it makes you pee. And eventually that's what your plate should look like. Notice 2 things. It's very colourful, okay, and it's flat. It's not like a mountain, and have water, okay. Our teachers explained to us the Prophet ﷺ generally only drank 2 things, milk and water, and there's a reason for that. Okay, but go for this sort of a plate. Lots of fruit and veg, okay, protein and whole meal, okay, if you're going to go for the carbs, okay. Anybody who's interested for a deep dive, especially if you've got any heart problems, look at the Payopi diet. It's fantastic. I've got a lot of my patients on this, okay, but it's not like a diet, it's a lifestyle choice, long-term commitment, okay. For diabetics, anybody who's diabetic here, or you know somebody's diabetes, go to your GP first because you'll need to tweak your medication if you follow this, because your sugars are going to drop and you may need to change your medication. You probably will need to change your medication, but it's a perfect time to reverse, and I'll say it again, reverse your diabetes. As long as you're not on insulin, you can do this. If you're on insulin, you'll struggle actually, but if you're not on insulin, then go to your GP and make it work, okay. Whatever you do, insulin or not, don't overeat. Your sugars are going to go sky high, you're going to make yourself ill. If you're interested, take a look at Michael Mosley's 8-week blood sugar diet. We put our patients on this, it works. It reverses that. And if you're someone at risk of diabetes, this will reverse it. Keep active, because a lot of us during Ramadan, we don't keep active. We tend to just sit down. If I keep my arm in a sling for 4 months, what would happen to my arm? The muscles would atrophy. Okay? Same thing happens to your muscle as well. So keep active. So maybe, walking to the masjid is fine, but if you just YouTube 7-minute scientific workout, 7-minute scientific workout, it's literally 7 minutes, just try that after iftari, about 20-30 minutes after, keep yourself active, it's really, really important. Okay, now the real game changer in all this, okay, that's just me scratching the surface, but the real game changer in all this is just take the way of prophecy. Take the way of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and you won't need me to talk about all these things. Let's talk about why. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, "Ma mala ibn Adam wi'an sharra min batni." That there's no vessel that the son of Adam fills worse than his stomach. Bihasbi ibn Adam luqaymat. It's enough for the son of Adam just to have a few small morsels. There's luqma. Is our Hazrat Yusuf Ibrahim explained this to us. Luqma is normal luqma. Luqayma is small luqma. Small. Luqaymat is anything between 3 and 9. Linguistically. Okay? 3 to 9. That's why Umar radiallahu anh used to only have 9 morsels of food with every meal. In amal of this statement of the Prophet فَإِنْ كَانَ لَا مَحَالَ لَهُ وَلَا بُدَّ لَهُ or كما قال, that if you can't do that, because not everybody can do that, okay, just have a few morsels to keep their back straight. But look, the Prophet ﷺ was defining the purpose of food is to function. Okay, يُقِمْنَ الصُّلْبَ, keep your back straight. If you can't do that, very famous, you all know this, فَثُلُثُ لِلطَّعَامِ وَثُلُثُ لِلشَّرَابِ وَثُلُثُ لِلنَّفَسِ. 1/3 for food, 1/3 for liquid, and 1/3 for air. 1,000 years ago, the center of medicine, studying medicine, was Baghdad. Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, he writes in the Ihya that a Christian doctor came to study medicine, further medicine, in Baghdad, and he read this, and he said, "Ma sami'tu kalaman a'jabu min hada an qillati at-ta'am." I've not heard anything more amazing than this statement about how to reduce your food intake. Now fast forward 1,000 years in my practice. So when I started this a few years ago, one of the doctors at my practice was asking, your Prophet talks about food? I was like, yes, he talks about everything. What did he say? I mentioned this, and she nearly fell off her chair. She said, he said that? I said, yeah. She said, if the whole world followed this, khalas, wouldn't have any health problems. These are 2 people who aren't believers and who witnessed the beauty of the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. I mean, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, he said this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ثُلُثَاءُ الطِّبْ فِي هَذَا. 2/3 of medicine is in this hadith. Okay, really important. So adopt it when you have your sahri and iftar and watch what happens. Okay, Prophet says, "Inna min as-sarf an ta'kula kull ma ishtahayt." That is from extravagance to just eat whatever you want. Just think about psychologically what we do. Okay, the Prophet had no inclination towards food, 0, even as a child. Even as a child. As the children who grew up with the Prophet when he was in the care of Abu Talib, they used to say we had to go and find him because he was just not interested in food. And you've all heard, because he's really, really famous, often he'd come home and he'd say to his wives, "Have you got anything to eat?" And they'd say no. "Have you got anything to eat?" And they'd say no. And he'd say, "Inni idhan lasa'im." No big deal, I'm just going to fast. What would we do if we came home and said, "Is there anything to eat, Begum?" And she says no. What would happen? Just qiyamah has happened. So how did the Prophet ﷺ sit? We've done this in madrasa, we know it. The reason why he sat the way he sat when he ate is because he was self-aware of how much he was eating. When you're sat on the floor, either squatting or with one knee up and sat on the other, your whole GI tract, the esophagus, stomach and intestines are aligned. And therefore you become self-aware when you become full. It doesn't happen when you sat down on a chair slumped like this, or even in this position. It doesn't work. But the prophetic manner of sitting was because then he could feel Sallallahu when his stomach was becoming full, and then he'd get up and go. He'd just get up and go. So there's a reason for that. The dhikr of pre and post, or during and post meals, is designed to fill you up. Try it. The more you're in dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pre, during and post meals, you'll find yourself eating less, because you'll realize the function and the purpose of food is to function. It's not for enjoyment. The Prophet ﷺ ate with 3 fingers. We know this. These 2 and the thumb. Okay? He ate with these 2 fingers and the thumb, and it's for a reason. It's impossible to overeat when you're eating like this. It's absolutely impossible. And he rarely ate to his full, and we talked about he had no longing for food. Now potentially, look, do we feel fine? This is my last few slides. Do we feel fine during Ramadan? Physically? We do. We actually feel good. Long term, just commit long term to eating 2 meals a day for the rest of your life. Unless obviously you have a day where you struggle. Everybody has days where you're struggling. Sometimes when I'm on call at work, I have to have that extra lunch because I'm really struggling. That's normal. But the general default is have 2 meals a day. And I've looked at so many health gurus, and I've concluded that this is the way that makes it work for our tradition. Because again, Imam al-Ghazali, he says in the Ihya, when he talks about food, that the Adatul Anbiya is that they used to eat once a day. The prophets would eat once a day, and there was no meal time. It was when they were hungry. Now we can't do that. So he said Adatul Awliya is that they used to eat twice a day. The Awliya, they eat twice a day. So why don't you have a good breakfast, good evening meal? And if you get hungry in between outside of Ramadan, ask yourself, am I thirsty? Am I stress eating? Am I eating because of boredom? You know, ask those questions. And if you're genuinely hungry, just snack on raw veg or nuts, small portions. Don't have a proper meal. And in the evening, have a decent meal with the foods that we talked about. And inshallah, what you'll find is that your weight and your health will be more stable throughout the whole year. And you won't struggle when it comes to Ramadan because you're already doing 2 meals a day. Just think about it. Inshallah, it will help you. A couple of reflections. This is from our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. She said the first fitna, musibah, that hit the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ was that they started to eat their full. Can you imagine that? I mean, how much insightful is this? The first was this, because when their stomachs became full, they became obese, overweight. There's a story of someone who had a big belly, and Umar came up to him and said, put his hand on the belly and said, "What's this?" And the man said, "Hada barakatullah." He said, "This is blessing." He said, "This is adab. This isn't barakah." Right? They became obese, and then their hearts weakened. So go back to the first few slides. Physically, if you're not in a good state, spiritually you won't be in a good state. It affects your heart. It blocks spirituality, and then their desires became wild. Once your appetite is fulfilled, once you feel full, the nature of the nafs, which we'll talk about in a second, the nature of the nafs is to just go wild. Okay, I'm satiated here, I want more. That's the problem. It's a problem. But this is like spiritual, immense spiritual insight, and this is paramount importance because I'll move on to some honest stuff now. That Ramadan is all about breaking your lower self, your nafs, your blameworthy soul. And if we don't do that in Ramadan, then we haven't achieved anything, because the intelligent one, according to the Prophet, our Prophet ﷺ defines us. Okay, whatever the Prophet ﷺ said, defined. No debate. What's intelligence? Al-Kayyisu man dana nafsa. The intelligent one is the one who subdues his nafs. وَعَمِلَ لِمَا بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ, and works for what comes after death. وَالْعَاجِزُ, the foolish one, the stupid one. وَمَنْ أَتْبَعَ نَفْسَهُ, his caprice just follows whatever he wants. Hawaha وَتَمَنَّ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and then has false hopes in Allah. And this is the key of Ramadan. That if you master your nafs, khalas, shaitan will really struggle against you. You're on cue.
Do you have any questions?
Okay, fine. Yeah. Any questions? No personal questions. That I've got this. Just general. Yeah. General. Happy to take.
One of your slides, you had emotional regulation. What do you mean by emotional regulation?
So essentially, that's just me a more inclusive way of saying mental health. And the reason why I say that is because in our culture, mental health is just something that's just not talked about, and it's stigmatized a lot as well. So anybody who suffers with any mental health condition, depression, anxiety being the common one, but also the others, and the big one that we're seeing now is stress management. So that's where emotional regulation comes in, and it's really important to develop a sense of mechanism of how you manage your emotions, and that's where emotional regulation comes in. Because if someone, like take loneliness for example, this is a big problem in this country right now, loneliness. if someone is lonely long term, the stress hormones that's released is exactly the same as being punched in the face. The difference is that when you're lonely long term. When you're punched in the face, it lasts for how long? A couple of seconds? The stress hormones then drop after about an hour or two. Why is that important? Because when you're in a state of stress, your body is in this what's called fight or flight mode. Either way, you're going to have a surge of hormones being released that's designed to get your breathing going, your heartbeat going, produce sugar naturally for that fight response or flight response. It simply makes you unwell. And that's why emotional regulation is, you have to incorporate it alongside everything else to reach that optimum state of health. I've talked about this stuff online, but I'm happy to come back after Ramadan one if this is a problem here, mental health, because it's really, in fact, out of all my talks, they're the ones that's most receptive. Because nobody talks about this. That it's okay. It's okay to be mentally unwell. Any more? No more? Good. Mona? In the middle one is the laser. The pointer.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Dr. Sahab, Jazakallah for scaring us all. We will be no doubt very conscious of what we are consuming from this point onwards. This particular program was designed to understand the beauty of Islam via fasting. In order to understand this beauty, it's important to understand the food we intake and its relationship with our behavior. Maulana Dr. Saab said at the last slide that the intelligent one is one who brings under control his nafs. Nafs is a word which you commonly listen to in Arabic, in the khutbah, or listening to the Quran. The word itself, the Arabs were really intelligent people with their use of language. The word nafs is commonly translated as your ego, your lower self, the thing that makes you do the bad things. One of the bad things that we've just heard is eating what you shouldn't be eating. But the Arabs use the word in different senses. If you have a state of constipation, is it constipation called? Constipation, where your body is withholding your waste. In Arabic, that is nafisa. You normally hear the name nafisa. That's a different form of the word. Nafisa yanfasu literally means to withhold. And nafusa, if you change the zir on the fa and put a pesh on it, totally different meaning. It now means one thing that everybody wants. It's coveted. So when a newborn baby is born, in Arabic it's called manfus. The baby, manfus. Everybody wants it. Because it's a symbol of love and cherishment. So this human being has the potential to either be a source of goodness and let it flow out to people, or withhold good. If you've mastered your nafs, your ego, your lower self, your desires, then you become a source of goodness coming out from you. If you've not mastered yourself, your ego, your lower self, your desires, then one becomes a person who's withholding the natural good in them. Allah has put natural goodness in everybody. That's what the Quran speaks about, the state of fitrah, innate good nature. You will hear sometimes people who are atheists who say, I don't believe in God. But when they are struggling in their lives or in a situation or got a problem, they will say, oh my God. That's your innate self-good nature speaking out. Or Jesus Christ. It's the innate self-nature believing in something more in depth. So these lessons over the next slides are examples of those individuals who got it, who figured it out, and who understood this is what I need to do in my life to have the real ultimate success in my hereafter. So, this is a book, Tibyan fi Adabi Jumlat al-Quran. And the Quran, we're all reading it, based on our work pattern or whatever. If you think about it, at the bottom end, once a day. To read the Quran once in a day, perhaps some of you have not tried it or would not entertain the idea. But you'd be surprised what you can achieve if you put your mind to it. And once in 2 months, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi says it's an obligation upon every Muslim to read the Quran twice in the year. But this is not a rule of thumb. The companions would read it 3 surahs on one day, 5 surahs the next day, 7 surahs the day after, 9 surahs the day after, 11 surahs the day after, and within 7 days they'd finish the Quran. I.e., Quran reading was just part and parcel. I've been in many shops, and if you just walk around in the morning, just go and say hello to a few Muslim shops, they've subcontracted reading Surah Yasin in the morning to Sheikh Sudais Hafizahullah. So they will have a cassette in the background, and Sheikh Sudais Hafizahullah is reaping the reward, and they've just subcontracted it. Or Sheikh Shuraim Hafizahullah. Is this Surah Yasin? So we seem to have this lack of control over ourselves. I should read it myself. 1 month, we're going to read inshallah 1 month. At least we should do that, but it's a question of timing. I've sat in gatherings, I've seen Hazrat Rahmatullah alayhi, Hazrat Maulana will have seen him as well, within 4 hours, one sitting, finish the whole Quran. Within 4 hours. I've seen a friend do it, lives in Bolton, 3 hours. It takes a bit of practice, but it's how you recite it as well. Of course, the Hafiz makes a difference. But I know ladies who are very regular in their recital. 25 minutes, one part is finished, no problem. And within a few weeks, the Quran is finished. This is ongoing throughout the year. So it's how much connection we have. And this is what the practices have been. If you ask yourself, what's our connection? There's a gentleman on Blackburn Road who's retired. And within 3 years, every single day after Zuhr, he would sit 1 hour with an alim and go through verses of the Quran and tafsir. Within 3 years, he went through the whole of the Quran. And now he's progressed on to learning Arabic language, so he has some direct enjoyment of listening to the Quran. So these are the individuals. Hazrat Usman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu. One day, Hazrat Tamim Dari is that companion who we hear the hadith of Dajjal. He was the one who was also part of writing the Quran. He was the one who lit and illuminated the lanterns in the Masjid al-Nabawi. Hazrat Sa'id bin Jubair, Imam Mujahid, Imam Shafi rahmatullahi alayhima, all of these one day. Imam Shafi rahmatullahi alayhi on one occasion, he was asked a masla. He immediately could not think of the answer, so he went through the Quran 3 times in the night just to locate the answer. Nowadays it's very easy, we just go on Google. 3 times in the Quran just to look for the answer. These are these great Imams. So we wonder where they're getting their spiritual energy from. If you think about Maulana Abdul Rahim Sahib, and you think, what is this guy on? I want to be on that same thing. He reads Quran. I've traveled with him, alhamdulillah. Even on a plane, he won't miss his tahajjud. Continue reciting Quran. Dr. Sahib mentioned luqaymat, small morsels. Not our morsels, are big morsels. Small morsels. I've seen Hazrat Maulana Bilal Sahib, Maulana Abdul Rahim Sahib, Hazrat Rahmatullahi alayhi. All these individuals, sit with them to eat. You feel embarrassed after a bit. Hazrat was very kind, he would say, you carry on eating. But these guys actually prove to us that the human being has the capability to adapt and do whatever they want. Once they do that, that's when you fight off shaitan, that's when you fight off your lower self, and that's when you begin to communicate with Allah Rabbul Alameen. Imam Abu Hanifa, he was a multinational businessman, a modern day multinational. His businesses were all along the Silk Route, from China to Damascus to Baghdad, everywhere. He was a big businessman. So we have a lot of the business laws in Islam through Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. Yet he finished 2 a day. And he would do, Maulana will tell you, the tahajjud or salah on 1 foot. Try putting your socks on with 1 foot. Then you will know whether you're obese or not. On 1 foot tahajjud, 15 juz. Yeah, we're in 2 feet. Imam Sahib's in Taraweeh, and sometimes we think, when is this going to finish? It just shows our mental state. I'm not an engineer, but there's one concept of engineering called momentum. And you think, well, shaitan's locked up. Why am I behaving and thinking the way I'm thinking as I used to do throughout the year? That's your momentum. Because your nafs is already programmed and conditioned for all of these things. Ibn al-Khatib, amazing gentleman. He says, I did 2 amazing things in my life. One thing, I was told to trim my beard, i.e. more than 1 fistful, and I cut the whole beard off. I cut it at the wrong end. Okay. The other thing is that I wasn't a hafiz, and I locked myself up and said, I'm not coming out until I finish hifz. So within 3 days I completed the hifz. And he used to complete 8 Qurans a day. 8. And we always think, well, it takes me this long, how can this man do 8? Sometimes this time is so blessed for certain individuals. There's so much barakah. You think how much we do in Ramadan. So to learn how these guys did it, we can read the Akabir Ramadan, Akabir Ka Ramadan, the Ramadan of the elders. That's now translated into English language. I will send it to Brother Muhammad. He can put it on the group, inshallah. Hazrat Maulana Khalil Ahmad Saharanpuri Sahib rahmatullah alayhi, Hazrat Maulana Saeed Sahib said a few stories about him in Fajr, after Fajr today. Qutub al-Aqtab as a Shaykh Nawwarallahu Markadahu, you have a detailed how he did it. 66 Qurans. And they were competing with each other. With 3 Buzrugs were competing, let's see who does the most. 60, 61, 66. Subhanallah. How he did it. Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Mutala Sahib rahmatullah alayhi, he would encourage us all to prove the point. He would do the Laylatul Nur in different places, call individuals, complete the Quran in front of us. We were all called, all the Ulum graduates, all people who connected with the Ulum, and everybody was reciting the Quran. In front of us, the miracle of the Quran, people 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Amazing. It's once we put our minds to it, the beauty of the Quran is there. Hazrat Maulana Ilyas Sahib rahmatullah alayhi, founder of the Tabligh Jamaat, all of these great individuals, the spiritual energy was coming from the Quran. If you're wondering, how does this guy do what he does? That's the wrong mindset. Ask him how much Quran he reads. And for Dr. Sahib was mentioning for mental health issues or nervousness or apprehension or whatever, or emotional states, Durud Sharif. Durud Sharif. A lot of us are working from home. It's very easy to throw your screen outside the window, okay, because you're fed up or absolutely disturbed by somebody on the other end of the screen. I've been teaching for nearly 1.5 years on screen, and my biggest irritation is some student not putting the video on. Because if students are in China or here or everywhere, they'll behave however they want to. So just have your clicker on side, on your finger, and just do Durud Sharif. You'll be surprised how it calms you down. But these guys did it. We saw Hazrat ourselves. By the way, Hazrat, for years, only had 1 chapati. And he could, if you think, this was that road called, if you're joining from the M60 on the A580 going towards, sorry? East Lancs Road. Yeah, East Lancs Road. So you're going on there, it's a bit of a hill. As you join it from the M60, you're going on to before, not the Trafford Road sign, not the M62, Liverpool, it's there. Sorry?
580.
Junction 5, you said?
580.
580. 5 East Lancs. So you're going up there, that's a bit of a hill. Hazrat used to push it up. With his family inside, if you were stuck in those days where you had all kinds of problems with your cars, he used to push it up. And he hardly ate. Hardly ate. Amazing, the strength. Prophet ﷺ and companions survived on dates and water. In Darul we used to have a day called the Yawm al-Aswadain, the day of Zamzam and Khajur. All you could have was Zamzam and Khajur. You survived on that. I mean, if you had a secret snack in your room, that was something else. But that was off the record. But Khajur and Zamzam. But these companions, in Kitab al-Maghazi, Imam Bukhari, rahmatullah alayhi, I will say to you, there were about 27 battles where the Prophet ﷺ participated himself. And you've just heard there were occasions there was no food in the house. Or they were fasting. You've just heard me saying they had dates and Zamzam. I watch kids get so excited when there's a boxing match because they're figuring out where the takeaway is being ordered from, whose house they're going to watch it at, and how long the fight is. They get so excited. And the thing is, you look at these boxers and they're pristine condition, as though their body's been chiseled out, and it takes them 6 months to do that. But these companions and the Prophet ﷺ never trained. Yet they had the strength. And if you go to Topkapi Museum in Istanbul, which is the other one, I forget, and you look at the sword that Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu had, or the other swords that were used in battle, right? They are not easy to hold, especially when you're riding a camel or horseback at the same time, and you're in the heat of Arabian sun, and you've not had much to eat. And this is how Islam was spread. It wasn't spread with the Prophet and the companions spending 6 months in the gym. It was spread with them controlling their diets and having the spiritual energy to move forward. So, there's a battle going on here between your soul and your nafs, your ego or your lower base. Shaitan is playing with the nafs, and we have to control and elevate our ruh. So, you can read the translation there. And if there was any value in our body, and by the way, Hazrat always used to explain to us in lesson, when people say my body is my temple, and by the way, I saw Hazrat doing press-ups on 2 fingers. I don't know if Maulana saw it, with 2 fingers, and that press-up, I don't know what you call it, Dr. Sir, what do you call it, where you sort of going into waves? I thought you worked out. That's it. So that press-up on 2 fingers. Imagine how fit he was. And his sustenance was hardly anything. This is where he's buried, by the way, in Canada. So if we've got to work on our ruh, our soul, because that's the thing that's going to be elevated to the heavens for an audience with Allah Rabbul Alameen. May Allah have mercy on us when that audience moment comes. And this is something nobody understands, but we know there's a soul inside us. The verse of the Quran, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, when the allegation was against him of inappropriate behavior, shall we just say, he very generically said that the nafs, basically, you have a soul inside you which is always giving you, habitually commanding you to do bad. Shall I read the Quran? Shall I go on my WhatsApp? Shall I watch a movie? Shall I read the Quran? Shall I read Durush Sharif or shall I ring a person? Habitually commanding to do bad things. And there's another one, is Lawama, was fighting you. No, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. In Christianity, this is called my good angel and my bad angel. So I asked a vicar, are angels really bad? That they would tell you a bad angel. So this is and when we're fasting, why does the fast come first and then the Taraweeh afterwards? We've just read one Taraweeh. So throughout the day, the Mashaykh said, your soul is being prepared through your fast. Hazrat Maulana Abdul Qadir Jilani rahmatullah alayhi said, your soul is being prepared to absorb the nur of Allah in the words of the Quran when you listen to the Taraweeh. And that's what's helping. If you think about it, Your first Tarawih, that was a struggle. This one won't be, because your soul's been prepared for it. And by the time you come to about 10, 11, 12 Tarawihs, you're lapping it up, because you love it. Especially if the Quran is being recited beautifully, every word is being heard. It's an absolute sheer enjoyment. With Mufti Shabir Sahib, 5 years I spent Ramadan with him, he would stop at the end of a story. That's how good he was. And you would able to move with it if you know the translation and enjoy the recitation of the Quran, listening to it. So our great mashayikh, and the spiritual giants this is called, they would really work on this. They would fight their nafs. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "A'da aduwik ma bayna jambayk." Your staunchest enemy is the one inside you. That's your nafs. Because that's the thing that's preventing you from a lot of goodness. And we all fast, alhamdulillah. You yourself will realize the difference. Fasting. This is why Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, the intermittent fasting that was being referred to, had 1 day of fasting, 1 day of non-fasting. I have friends who have practiced this and they have lost weight. Others who fast every day. There's a gentleman on Blackburn Road who is in his 90s. He's been fasting since I was a kid there in the Bronx. And alhamdulillah, his health is very good. Obviously, age has an impact, but alhamdulillah, he can still walk, still talk, his mental capacities are still there. And he's been fasting throughout his life, except for the days you cannot fast and it's haram to fast, he's fasting. And when he is, he controls his diet. And one thing, Dr. Saab, I thought he'd put a big slide on this, is a picture of our wedding feasts and the meal when we go for weddings. And so, as you well know, or I will tell you, we go to wedding upon wedding upon wedding in 1 day in the summer season. Okay? And you mentioned dal, and there's a limit to how dal is good for you, right? But that's the enemy that we need to fight. And how did the Prophet ﷺ do this? Well, the Prophet ﷺ's diet was basically ما شبع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يومين متتابعين من خبز الشعير حتى قبض, until he passed away. So that's a 63-year lifestyle. We have more information on his lifestyle in the last 20 odd years of his life. He never ate to his fill for 2 continuous days. I mean, who sat here thinks there's not going to be food on his table at iftar time? And by the way, if you open your smartphones on Sky News, the headline today is 50% of Muslims will not have enough food for iftar. In England. That's Sky News. That's absolutely amazing. Islamic relief. I mean, all the spare food that we're not going to eat now because Dr. Saab scared the living daylights out of us, we could donate to the Islamic relief, have a food bank, and there's genuine cases in NW10. What's that? Is that North London somewhere? Tottenham area or someplace. Cases where the whole of the husband's income is going towards paying the rent. And the quality of life's not there, food is not there, there are young children. Read it on your smartphones, the case. I mean, we think what we have, Allahu Akbar, and how much of it goes to waste, especially at our weddings or whatever. So the Prophet ﷺ, his habit, fasting is the key of controlling your nafs. That's what we're learning here today. And that's why this is the beauty of Islam through our worship. And the thing is, let me relate to you an incident with Bolton School. About 8 odd years ago, and we have these meetings with them on a periodic basis. Bolton School, by the way, is your Manchester Grammar School equivalent. Altrincham Grammar School. 12,000 fees, 33% are Muslim kids. So they were concerned that their children would get poorer results. Bolton School, reputation. Your school, right, Ahmed? They'll get poorer results because the Muslim kids are fasting, and of course the Muslim kids are getting the best results. They said, Dr. Chandia, could you give us sort of the equivalent of a ruling, a fatwa, that they don't need to fast? So Well, I'd probably be the most popular mufti in town without a mufti certificate. But they can't. But let me say something to you, they're going to get better results than last time. I said, how is that? I mean, these are Oxford guys, Oxford graduates that we're speaking to. I says, why is that? I says, it's because fasting actually elevates your intellectual prowess. I said, no, I feel like this, I feel like this, I feel. I said, well, you teach classics here, Greek civilization, and when we have the lesson on Islamic history in a few weeks, inshallah, the classic Greek civilization, Roman civilization. Greek civilization, you've heard of Aristotle, you've heard of Plato, you've heard of Galen, you've all these guys. Muslims benefited from their philosophy as well. Greece produced intellectuals. You've heard of Pythagoras' theorem. The square on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides. They produce intelligent people. And we learn about this. Greek doesn't produce intelligent people anymore. Its industry is totally something else. Fasting was the key to these philosophers. They all fasted. And it helped them. And before Allah Rabbul Alameen gave any holy text to any of the prophets, there was a cycle of fasting before them. So that's what we need to understand. Am I fasting because I have to? Or because it's Shabi Barat? Because everybody in the house is fasting, so I need to. Otherwise I won't get my daily dosage of giving my bhajiyas. Okay? So we really need to, these are Arabic statements, collectively they're all saying the same thing. Do not eat to your fill. And fasting is very important for us as a therapy to come closer to Allah. That's the beauty of Islam. How we read Rahman Rahim every day. This is how Rahman Rahim Allah is, that He wants us to come closer to Him. And actually showed us a way, and medical has just proven, if you control what's going into your stomach, you control how your thinking process is going to be, how your body functions, how alive and kicking you're going to be, and how you really want to come and do your 5-time prayers. Even your 5-time prayers, there's not a workshop on salat, but you could do a similar thing on the postures within salat. Your sajda, by the way, the more stretched it is, the only way I learned to do salat properly is I watch Hazrat Maulana Subhanahu. Didn't look at the books. His ruku, you could put a plate on it to balance on it every single time. And I watched it for 6, 7, 8 years continuously. His sajda, the way he did it was as you read about the Prophet ﷺ and how outstretched it was. A lot of us do this. I mean, I've watched people just do this. These arms, just totally locked, or they actually, iftirash al-kalbi, their arms are right to the ground, and that is makruh actually in sajda. And when if you can, the lockdown was the best time to perform one sunnah, and that is the sunnah of having your arms right out so a lamb would pass through. That is the sunnah sajda of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We need another lockdown, Dr. Sir, for that salah. Because once you're all, you will feel your muscles. I'm not a gym person, but you will feel all these veins stretching. And you've got back pain issues, that's a very good cure for it. So the idea, the key for this workshop was, we really need to elevate our soul and bring it closer to Allah. And Allah has blessed us and showed us the way to do this with fasting. When I talk to my colleagues at work about fasting, I had one chief inspector who I was dealing with many moons ago, and he was patrolling the Muslim community. And he came new to the area, and he says, I want to understand the Muslim community. Let me explain to you. It was a month of Ramadan. If you do one thing, he said, what? Fast with us. He fasted as the chief inspector. I got him the local masjid timetable. He said, you fast according to this time, you will understand the Muslim community. Go to Maghrib time, go one day, go and break fast with them, go and watch a Taraweeh, observe everything, what they're doing. And he fasted the whole month, and he fasted for at least 5-6 years that I was in close contact with him. And thoroughly enjoyed it. He said, this is better than any police exercise I've ever done. And he said, I feel fit as a fiddle. Fit is a fiddle. So fasting is the key, and this is why the Quran says لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you become God conscious. The only way we can become God conscious is our ruh in a spiritually healthy position. And the key to getting that is the Quran. Whether we listen to it, whether we read it, whether we try to understand it, and the biggest thing, act upon it. So inshallah, these workshops, or the series of the workshops, we focused on different things that are happening around us and to us. But today's session, inshallah, is all about the fasting, its beauty, and is the beauty of Islam. You got any questions? Dr. Saab is happy to answer them, inshallah, food related. But please pray for those. This is Sky News statistic. Islamic Relief has given them that statistics. 50% in the UK. We don't know because that's not our life. We live in, mashallah, a middle class area. In some areas, the thing eat or heat is actually affecting our Muslim community. So we send zakat normally abroad. We may have to start thinking how we keep the zakat here and apply it here for the lessons. So lo akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Maulana आप दुआ फरमा लें. नहीं आपकी सदारत है, आपको दुआ कम से कम करनी.
इंशाअल्लाह जो बातें इन दो हजरात ने आप लोगों के सामने कही हैं वो बहुत ही आला किस्म की बातें थी, बहुत ही उम्दा किस्म की बातें थी. इससे ये मालूम हुआ कि इस्लाम ये ऐसा मज़हब है कि इसके फॉलो करने में दीन की भी कामयाबी है और दुनिया के अंदर भी कामयाबी है. अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला हमें इस्लाम की कदर करने की तौफीक अता फरमाए. और अल्लाह पाक ने ये जो नेमत हमको बिला मांगे दी है, हमने अल्लाह पाक से नहीं मांगा था कि अल्लाह पाक हमको मुसलमान के घर में पैदा फरमाना, लेकिन अल्लाह ने अपने फ़ज़ल से, अपनी मेहरबानी से, अपने करम से हमें एक मुसलमान के घर में पैदा किया. और जब हमने अपनी आँखें खोली तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह हमने ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम बग़ैर किसी सोचे समझे पढ़ लिया. ये अल्लाह का बड़ा करम हुआ और बड़ा इनाम हुआ. अल्लाह पाक इसकी कदर करने की तौफीक अता फरमाए. तो इस्लाम के अंदर जितने भी अहकामात हैं, चाहे उसका ताल्लुक़ डू से हो कि करो, और चाहे उसका ताल्लुक़ डोंट से हो कि न करो, इस पे खूबी ही खूबी है. यू नेवर गो रॉन्ग इंशाअल्लाह. अल्लाह पाक हमें इसकी समझ अता फरमाए. दुआ करो. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला सय्यिदिल मुरसलीन व खातिमिन नबिय्यीन व अला आलिहि व अस्हाबिहि अजमाइन. रब्बना ज़लमना अनफुसना व इन लम तग़फिर लना व तरहमना लनकूनन्ना मिनल ख़ासिरीन. रब्बना आतिना फ़िद दुनिया हसना व फ़िल आखिरति हसनतन व क़िना अज़ाबन नार. रब्बना ला तुआख़िज़ना इन नसीना औ अख़्तअना. रब्बना व ला तहमिल अलैना इस्रन कमा हमलतहु अलल लज़ीना मिन क़ब्लिना. रब्बना व ला तुहम्मिलना मा ला ताक़त लना बिही वअफ़ु अन्ना वग़फ़िर लना वरहमना अन्त मौलाना फ़ंसुरना अलल क़ौमिल काफ़िरीन. अल्लाहुम्मा इन्ना नस्अलुका अल अफ़्व वल आफ़िया वल मुआफ़ात अद-दाइमा फ़िद दीन वद दुनिया वल आख़िरह. अल्लाहुम्मा अरिनल हक़्क़ हक़्क़न वरज़ुक़ना इत्तिबाअह व अरिनल बातिला बातिलन वरज़ुक़ना इज्तिनाबह. रब्बना तक़ब्बल मिन्ना इन्नका अंतस समीउल अलीम व तुब अलैना या मौलाना इन्नका अंतत तव्वाबुर रहीम. व सल्लल्लाहु तआला अला खैरि ख़ल्क़िही सय्यिदिना मुहम्मद व अला आलिहि व अस्हाबिहि अजमईन बिरहमतिका या अरहमर रहीम. जज़ाकुमुल्लाह. डॉक्टर साहब का बहुत शुक्रिया. माशाअल्लाह.